Jebeda no bar jebe ge dharba dan dam je kempe bardu chopra jeba dan jege se jebe ma kadang nyampe senjen tam je de wa dan den tunga dan de ne de la yang dang pra zobe chanchu je dobra ja dala dong jebe da no bar jebe ge Tarba dhan, tam je kempe baridu chobara je ba dhan, je ge zu je be ma, ka dang nyambe, sem chen tam je de wa dhan, ndu la, dabara so be chanchu rinpo je tombara cha, dala dong, je be dra, no ba je be ge, tarba dhan, tam je kempe baridu chobara je ba dhan, jegi su jebe ma nong ka dang nyam pe sen chen tam che de wa dang den dung ngao dang de ne do la na me pa yang da para so be chan chu ren po che to para ja de je du sang pa ge ge bar du long a ye sum ge wa la go she bar du long a ye sum ge wa la go tu te re Sun te ne ma san da sam ge bar du lu nga ye su ge wa la so ge jo da so ge jo nam ba chang ju bar du da ne kyab su je da ge jin su ge be so nang ge dro la ben je sang ge du bra sho sang ge jo dan so ge jo nam la chang ju bar du da ne kyab su je Dagi jinsu gibe so nangi chola penche sangi dubra sho sangi chodan sogi chonamla chanchu bardu dani gyabzu je dagi jinsu gibe so nangi chola penche sangi dubra sho kada pe sanjen tamje dewa dang dewe kundan tempar gyurje Gyudan Dava Gyuji Tunga Pepe Deva Dhamme Deva Gyuji Nirin Chada Nidang Deve Danyang La Nebra Gyuji Kadang Nyampe Senjen Tamche Deva Dang Deve Gyudan Tempara Gyuji Tunga Dang Gyudan Deva Gyuji Tunga Pepe Deva Dhamme Deva Gyuji Nirin chadang ni dang dewe dang nyong la na pra gyu che kadang na pe sen chen tam che de wa dang dewe gyun dang dang pa la gyu che dung yao dang dung yao gi gyu dang de wa gyu che dung yao pe de wa dang me de wa gyu che Nirin chadang ni dang dewe dang nyong la na pra gyu che Bajra Samaja, Bajra Samaja, Bajra Samaja. Semjen Gungi, Gungi Rijin, Dude Punche Meze Jomze La, Ona Malu Jishin, Gengi Rupe, Jumden Koje Nedu Sheshu, So Pargam Pao. Pushpe tupe alo ke ge ne ne de shabda prade jaso sa she po ju ju shing me to dum re ra len she nin de gen ba di san ye shin la mi de bu wa yi ro gu nam da shin du cho ba ro sho cha se wa dang cho jing shang ba dang je zu yi rang gu zin so wa yi 개와 중세 다기 지상바 탐제 소배 창주 치릉오 Let body and mind settle into their own places. First, perhaps easiest, to begin by settling the body. Settling the body into the Vairocana posture, posture of the illuminator, which is particular 7 points. Seated in a stable and balanced way, optimally cross-legged on the ground. Body upright, chest open. 2 hands placed in a balanced way. 2 arms balanced. Hands holding the meditation mudra. Chin tucked in. Gaze downwards towards the nose with a soft gaze falling onto the space in front. Lips and teeth touching and tongue on the palate. These are the 7 points to check in with in order to let the body settle into its own place, settle into a place of ease and rest, as well as a place of brightness, of radiance. The brightness of the body and openness, finding lots of space in this body, lots of stability as well. And then breathing in to fill both your chest and your stomach. Breathing out. Bringing attention to the body of breath that arises and ceases from moment to moment. And as breath settles, as energy settles, mind follows in tow and settles. Cultivate especially 2 qualities of the mind being stable and unmoving, content not to move rather than forced not to move. Unmoving and yet radiant, all pervasive. And in fact, there's no need to move since it's already everywhere. There's no place that the mind doesn't pervade. And in this way, at this place, with this body, mind, and breath, breathe in the entire universe as you know it. And breathe out. And breathe in and breathe out. For all your experiences in the end are your experiences and thus your world. Breathing in the entire world, the entire universe as you experience it. Breathing out the entire universe as you experience it. In one breath, the entire universe is absorbed. In one breath, the entire universe unfolds. Moment the moment, the moment. Then to the text for laying aside. Recollecting the teachings of applying the four powers for laying aside all faults, for laying aside all negative karma, for laying aside all the obscurations, the power of regret, the power of remedy, the power of reliance, and the power of resolve. Regret with regards to all the unskillful actions of body, speech, and mind, in particular having the 10 non-virtues as the reference point. See how the 10 non-virtues are contradictory to the 3 vows that we carry. In terms of individual liberation vows, the 10 non-virtues are the enemy to what we are trying to achieve, practicing for our own benefit, practicing with ourselves as the reference point. That the 10 non-virtues are simply the opposite of what we want. They bring all the sufferings, all the dissatisfaction, all the stress. Seeing how the 10 non-virtues are contradictory to our bodhisattva vow of benefiting beings, seeing how 10 unskillful actions cause harm and suffering to all beings, we lay aside, we put aside, we abandon the 10 non-virtues. Finally, seeing how the 10 non-virtues is the complete opposite of the samaya of body, speech, and mind of secret mantra, which is the body samaya of secret mantra, is to manifest, is to be in the world, in the form, in the appearance of Buddhas. And so how can actions of killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct fulfill that? It's the opposite, it's the contradictory to the presence of Buddhas. Likewise, speech. To hold Vajra speech is to abandon unskillful speech. The whole Vajra mind is to abandon unskillful mind. So on all three levels of vows, with 10 non-virtues as the reference point, we abandon. With 10 virtues as the reference point, we cultivate for ourselves, for the sake of others, and finally, from the secret mantra perspective, there is simply no choice but for us to naturally engage in the 10 virtues. So regret is the first. Resolve is to resolve never again, to do our best to avoid the 10 non-virtues, and to resolve to actualizing the 10 virtues as the body, speech, and mind of Buddhists. And through the remedy of this practice, this visualization, these words, we stand in the presence of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, our Guru. We come into their presence relying on them. And so in this way, these are the four powers. And with these four powers, the faults can be put aside. The faults can be laid aside, which is what shakpa means. To shakpa, often translated as confession, is to, more importantly, not just confess, not just fess up, as we say, not just admit to, but a determination, a willingness to put aside now, not to get caught up in them, but to put them aside. Alas, great Guru Vajra holder, and all you Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who reside in the 10 directions and 3 times, I, who am called Gunju Yishi Dorje, supplicate you turn your awakened attention to me. From beginningless samsaric until this very moment, under the power of the afflictive emotions, attachment, aggression, confusion, pride, and jealousy, I have committed the 10 non-virtuous actions through the gates of my body, speech, and mind. I have committed the 5 heinous crimes and the 5 secondary heinous crimes. I have transgressed the individual liberation vows, transgressed the precepts of bodhisattvas, and transgressed the samayas of the great vehicle secret mantra. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards the 3 jewels. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards my gurus and teachers. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards my father and mother. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards my companions in the pure spiritual life. I have abandoned the sublime Dharma and disparaged the noble Sangha. In short, I now lay aside all faults and transgressions whatsoever that have become obstacles to the higher realms and to liberation, and that have become the cause for samsara and the lower realms. Before you, the great Guru Vajra holder, and all you Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and 3 times, I expose the faults, I confess them, I am contrite, I regret them, I will not conceal them, I will not hide them, henceforth I will restrain myself and abstain from them. If I do not expose and lay them aside, they will not be transformed. Therefore, by revealing and laying them aside, may they be cleared, may I be purified. Namo to the mandala of you victorious Idam deities. Om, I expose and confess the broken samayas of the Vajra exalted body. Ah, I expose and confess the broken samayas of Padma, exalted speech. Hung, I expose and confess the broken samayas of the perfect exalted mind. 3. I expose and lay aside the broken root and branch samayas. I expose and lay aside transgressions committed knowingly. I expose and lay aside transgressions committed unknowingly. The 3 non-virtues of the body, the 4 non-virtues of speech, the 3 non-virtues of the mind. I confess each of the 10 non-virtues individually with faultless disciplined conduct, possessing completely pure disciplined conduct, and through the disciplined conduct that is free of arrogance, may the paramita of disciplined conduct be perfected. To glorious Vajrasattva I pay homage. Vajra Sattva Samaya Manava. Vajra Sattva Samaya Chidam Guru. Vajra Sattva Samaya. Vajra Sattva Samaya Manava. Anuradham was a images of Anuradham was a images of Vajra Sattva Samaya Manava. Vajra Sattva Samaya Manava. Anuradham was a images of Anuradham was a images of the domain was a domain was a book. Vajra Sattva Samaya Manava. Vajra Sattva Samaya Manava. Vajra Sattva Samaya Manobalaya Bhajasada Denobadida Dedome Sudo Bajrama Memuja Bajrava Mahazamaya Zado. think that now body, speech, and mind become crystal clear. The glorious Vajrasattva, the Guru, dissolves into you. And you become crystal clear like Guru Vajrasattva. So now, to Nirnipa's text that we have been working with. We are in the section now of the natural state, Mahamudra. So, on the basis of having generated bodhicitta, then from bodhicitta arising as idam, the arising of idam as the natural expression of the, you could say, the innate energy called self. So the play of this energy, the play of this natural radiance of the mind. Right now, the natural radiance of the mind is actually present as well. So the mind and its radiance, or the heart and the activities of the heart, the mind and its projections, you could say. So right now, because we are under the power of delusion, then its radiance, its natural energy, its self, is manifesting as the six realms of confused existence. But the more we separate ourselves from the power of delusion, and therefore from the other afflictive emotions, the more then this natural radiance, this energy will manifest, will shine the way that it should be. So one way to cultivate this, to encourage this, is engaging in idam practice. Idam practice is emphasizing appearances. That's the creation stage aspect of idam. Then, of course, there's the completion stage of idam, which emphasizes the other side to appearance is essence. So essence is how the mind is in and of itself, and then how this mind appears. So training in creation stage in idam, in that aspect of idam practice, creation stage, is an exercise in presencing, as I've said before. How are we present in this world? How are we present as we encounter others, as we are with others? Right now, we are self-presencing in the six modes of samsaric existence. So even if we think we have a human body, but even throughout the course of a day, even throughout, the course of like 1 minute, we may be presencing, we may be turning up as a hungry ghost, as a deva, a light being, as an ashura, a demigod, a human, a hungry ghost, an animal, and a being from the hell realm. We cycle through all of this because what are these existences? What are these forms? They are the very embodiment of these momentary thoughts, momentary conceptuality that arise from moment to moment to moment. Right now, again, in the context of conceptuality, they are arising in the modes of the six modes of being in samsara. But when this conceptuality is cut, so meaning not that mind is cut, that would be nihilistic, but the confusion overlay is cut. which is adventitious, which has no reality. It's an accident. It's a mistake. When we cut that mistake, then from moment to moment, it's the five Buddha families, including the six Vajradhara. Then from moment to moment is the self-embodiment. It's the very appearance of the five wisdoms, the six paramitas, and so on and so forth. So, idam being creation stage, then the natural state Mahamudra is completion stage. And creation stage and completion stage, even though we speak of them that way, even though there is a linearity to how we have been practicing this, really, all of them should be folded into one. All of them should be lifted up together, lifted up together as a single practice, which we call the Fivefold Mahamudra. Of course, there is a linear sequence to how, when we are still learning, so we want to have a taste of how to cultivate bodhicitta. We want to have a taste of how to cultivate idam, how to cultivate devotion to the Guru, how to cultivate natural state Mahamudra, and then finally dedication. But eventually, these all five are always present in any practice that we do. So the Fivefold Mahamudra, in fact, is not a separate thing that we do, some kind of separate practice we do, but it is, it underlies, it's an organizing principle for all the practices that we do. So yesterday we looked at this famous stanza from the Fivefold Mahamudra song that Gilbert Rinpoche composed, starting on page 45. Right, so we looked more carefully at the analogy given here. So the essence of mind itself, is compared to the sky-like expanse. Then conceptualizations are compared to the clouds. And it says here, as long as these clouds have not dispersed, have not cleared, then even though the planets and the stars, which is the twofold knowledge, this twofold knowledge is the knowledge that arises after the obscuration of believing in the self of persons and the selves of phenomena. Both these, when they're cleared, then the two knowledges shine. And the two knowledge is the knowledge that liberates self and liberates others. So, as long as clouds are in the way, right, then even though the planets and the stars are actually there, but on this side of the clouds, it's a very dreary day. It's a gray day. And because, habitually we get affected by this, in other words, suffering, so then we become stressed. Then everything becomes heavy, everything's become tight, everything becomes depressing, everything becomes demanding. But here, although we do practices to try to clear the clouds, but the final line here, Gilbert Rinpoche tells us, attend earnestly, therefore, to this non-conceptual mind, the mind that is, in essence, free from conceptualities. He's telling us, pay attention on that non-conceptual mind, instead of trying so hard, you could say, trying so hard and hoping that conceptualities never arise. So here it might be useful use to explain this difference. This difference between there is a way to approach, there is a way to relate to conceptuality, where we are striving to be separated from conceptuality. So conceptuality is nam to, is all thoughts, all feelings, all emotions, all those are conceptualities. So one approach to conceptualities is to become separated from conceptualities, is to leave conceptualities behind. So that's one approach. And that's the usual approach. Then there is the approach or the understanding of non-conceptuality. And what does that mean? What does that mean? Non-conceptuality. How is it different from separating from conceptuality? Non-conceptuality is the practice that is based on the understanding that, in fact, conceptualities are a lie. Conceptualities are a lie. They are not real. They are only temporarily arising phenomena through causes and conditions coming together. They temporarily surface, and when they surface, right? Why they seem so burdensome is because we fail to recognize their falsehood. And so we buy into their falsehood, and then we get dragged around by them. So even to the point of when we begin to see them as if they are real and therefore an enemy, and we try so hard to push them aside, that causes even more chaos. So here, the difference between practicing to be separated from conceptuality, as if they are real, as if they are a real enemy, and to recognize the nature of conceptuality is the practice of non-conceptualities. This is also actually explained in the Chan or Zen tradition. In the famous Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, or the Sixth Ancestor, Huineng, he talks about this. He says that the other approach is the approach of to separate from conceptuality. In Chinese is li nian. Li is to separate, li kai, to separate from. So it says most people practice meditation like that. Most people deal with samsara in that way. How can I leave? How can I put nian, conceptualities over there? I want to be over here. And so then he says, in that way, you're always running away. You always feel like you're being hunted down by your thoughts, by your conceptualities. And it says that is the inferior way, and you'll never solve your problem if you take that approach. At best, temporarily, it will keep the barbarians at bay. It's like building a fort, but eventually they will breach the fort, if that's how you understand who they are. Then, if you understand Wu Nian, Wu is negation, non-conceptuality. But if you have this higher understanding of non-conceptualities, then you see them for what they are, and then they have no power over you. Now, of course, initially, seeing them for what they are, we're not yet convinced. So we still have fear arising. We still have anxiety arising. So, what we need to do is to familiarize the truth of non thought, the truth of non conceptuality. And so, therefore, attend earnestly, therefore, to this non conceptual mind, this non conceptuality. Make sense? Any questions about this? Any questions or comments about this?
It seems to me that you can never get rid of conceptions because everything that we see and think and touch and so forth is a concept. And so, unless you are dead, your body cannot perceive non conception, can it? I mean, do some people think they do that?
And therefore,
There better be another way.
yes, but yet, we do habitually take to separate
I mean,
from
I, but
conceptualities, to
but
keep them at bay.
but you can't really, can you?
People try, we do too, So not logically, it's not logical, right?
Uh,
It's an entangled heart, and so we do that, I
yeah.
don't want this thought. In the abstract, yes, of course, you're like, oh, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, you can never be separated from it. But when suffering arises, it's like, I don't want that, I hate that. Well, that's where
Where we get piled up.
yes, and that's where it needs to be applied most importantly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the rubber meets the road. Is that the expression? That's where the stink starts. And that's where we need to apply this.
But it seems to me that approaching it from getting rid of the thought, we
Again, I'm not talking about the logic of it. I'm talking about the illogical response that we habitually have.
I understand,
Uh-huh.
but a better option if we're trying to get rid of something is to get rid of whatever it is that is causing our suffering, if we can.
Correct. No arguments about that. Now, apply it. Apply it to our habits.
Yeah, yeah.
Give the bitter medicine to habits and see how they protest, how they yell and scream. It all seems very logical. I mean, almost logical. You're like, oh, yeah, I get it. Okay, well, now try it. I always said to people, it's like, I'm glad that you think Buddha Dharma makes so much sense. Great. Okay, now apply it. This is where the problem is. When applying it, we yell and scream. It's not hard to understand. If you're open to it, of course, if you're close to it, for whatever reason, and then even the logic is hard. But if you're open to it, the logic and the reasoning is so clear. So clear until you're like, duh. As you say, it seems like that's absurd. But yeah, watch how we behave. Absurdity upon absurdity upon absurdity. Now,
Dr. Lai,
yes.
is this? Oh, I'm sorry, I cut somebody off. I
Yeah, no,
apologize.
go ahead.
Thank you. I was listening to the talks you gave in Peru, and you were talking about when you talked about the four measurables, you were talking about like their evil twins and triplets.
Yes.
As I'm listening to you talk about this right now and listening to Judy, I was thinking about my own struggle with some of these, like what you said, like the senses letting go. Is this where it's easy to bypass something and just go to indifference? The idea of I'm
Yes.
just indifferent
Yes.
about all of this.
Yes, sure, kind of veering off in the direction of, oh, it's all pure, it's all. So Gampopa talks about the faults of the strayings in the Gampopa's teachings to the assembly. He talks about applying emptiness as an antidote is a form of straying. So he says, we use emptiness or of a superficial understanding of emptiness, like a balm or like a bandage. There's an injury, put a bandage on it. There's an injury, put a bandage on it. He says even that is a form of straying. Of course, initially that is how we engage teachings on emptiness, as a band-aid, to cover a wound, so that the wound won't get infected. But eventually, we realize that actually that is I don't know, like taking a very sophisticated, a very kind of like precious object to do a very kind of mundane task. Yeah. So there are levels and levels of working through this. Um,
You've
so,
previously you've said something about where you tell people to like just say call the thought out. Like,
uh-huh.
is that something you would say would be part of like an exposure process as you like something we could take away?
as as well, so the 84,000 dharmas that the Buddha gave, they all have their particular context, their particular place and occasions of application. So this path particularly says that all 84,000 dharmas are necessary. The 84,000 dharmas, according to Kyoba and Sumgen, are not 84,000 possibilities, but rather the 84,000 are all part and parcel of a single path to awakening. So on the surface, it sounds really intimidating, right? Overwhelming, right? What? I have to learn the 84,000? And then what? Memorize 84,000? How about just 84 is overwhelming enough, right? But actually, understanding that the 84,000 dharmas all constitute, together should be folded into a single approach to awakening, frees us from the burden of choosing. Like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. No, you become like, not, right now it's this, right now is that, right now is this, right now is that. So sometimes you take one approach. Sometimes, once you have this overall approach embraced by the Mahamudra understanding, then all the various approaches becomes workable, including separation from conceptuality as an approach. After all, that is part of 84,000. But you don't use it as an ultimate solution. You use it as the occasion calls for. Back away, back away, back away. That is a form of separation from thoughts. But you are now employing it with the understanding that actually the real status of that is non-conceptuality. It's like sometimes when you're in a nightmare, you know it is a nightmare, but yet because of habitual conditioning, right? Great fear still arises or great desire arises, or whatever it is, continue to arise. You continue to kind of respond to, even though you know this is a dream. What the heck? Why am I freaked out? But power of habit. So then you back away, back away, back away from that scary thing that has turned up, and run. Even as you're running, you're like, I know I'm in a dream, but it's terrifying, you know? At the same time, if the dream is pleasant, right? I think we all have experienced this before. The dream is pleasant. You're like, I know it's a dream, but I want to keep this going. So you actually do things, you know? Again, habit. Not willing to give up. But it's very good if you have the ability to know, oh, it's a dream. Then the scary things that turn up in a dream, the attractive things that turn up in the dream, now you can make some decisions. So beyond, should I stop this? Should I continue this? One approach is, it's only a dream. Why bother to stop it? Why bother to continue it? Let it run its course, done with it. So that would be one approach, right? Another approach is, now bodhicitta comes in. I know it's a dream. But if it is beneficial to others, I will run from this scary thing. Because there are others stuck in this dream who don't understand. And you have to empathize with them. So you run. This is like the Zen master exchange, with the student. This cheeky, smart alecky student, walking with the master in the dark. The master was holding a lantern. Disciple, asking the master, Master, can an awakened being see in the dark? Of course, it's metaphorical, but also, talking about their situation. Master, can an enlightened being see in the dark? Master says, yes. Then the disciple, the smart aleck, goes, so why are you holding a lantern? So there's many layers to this, yeah? Why are you holding a lantern? And the master said, so that idiots like you don't run into me. So that those who can't see like you won't run into me. And some other stories, Great teacher is dying, but instead of being serene and, fulfilling all the expectations of a great practitioner dying, the teacher is going, moaning in great pain, And the more teacher is moaning, the more embarrassed the students are. Because the whole town have come to witness, the great passing of this great master. Meanwhile, he's moaning and groaning louder and louder, and people outside are wondering what's going on, that all the disciples are losing face, And in that moment right before he dies, one of his closest students says, Master, this is really like embarrassing. Can you not mourn like this? And teacher turns around and says, what do you expect? I'm dying. And almost like with a, wink, then he dies. So the equanimity from the four immeasurables, free from bias of attachment and aversion, is not shutting down your emotions, is experiencing your emotions with knowledge, with understanding. But for the sake of others, you cry when you need to cry. You laugh when you need to laugh for the sake of others. So it's not advocating being stoic, and therefore other people experiencing you being cold. And how does that help others? It doesn't. It may even become like, a statement of judging others. Oh, you silly people. Now, that is maybe the task of a teacher. Sometimes a teacher does have to judge and tease. Oh, you silly. But generally speaking, So once we understand, once we are embraced by this Mahamudra view with regards to conceptualities, then everything becomes much more workable. Okay, now 46. So beginning with, cultivating this samadhi. So it says on 46, for this natural state Mahamudra, there are two parts. Yeah. One part is cultivating samadhi. So first you have to steady the mind, which is what samadhi is, to steady the mind. Then after steadying the mind, there is introducing the meaning, which we have already been introduced to the meaning. So perhaps a little early. That's why we, instead of knowing what to do with this meaning that you have been introduced to, it becomes like kind of an object of intellectual playing out. Don't do that. Leave that alone. So steadying the mind first through cultivating samadhi, and then being introduced to the meaning, being introduced to the nature of mind beyond kind of an intellectual understanding. For that to be effective, first we have to steady the mind, and that is done through cultivating samadhi. Right? Now, in the process of steadying the mind, don't mistake this as the goal is to steady the mind, and therefore, how quickly can I go? Right? How quickly can I get to steadying the mind? Because if that's how you're looking at it, then you can manufacture a facsimile, a false version of steadying the mind. And so you have to go through the process. Because it is by going through the process and taking however long you need to take, sometimes it's short, sometimes it's long, it's hard to say, but you have to be willing to take however long it takes in order to experience, to develop the full extent of what this steadying of the mind, what cultivating this samadhi can do. And so, as we would say, the journey is not just about getting somewhere. The journey includes all the lessons that you're going to learn from getting here to there. So it's important not to rush, because this rushing, our mind is so adept our monkey mind, our confused, deluded mind. This deluded mind is actually very sophisticated. To call it deluded, don't be fooled by. To think that, oh, it's dumb. No, it's super smart. That's the problem. Deluded mind is super, super duper smart. It's always finding ways, to be exposed. It's finding ways to escape exposure, to keep this game going. So deluded mind is actually very smart, very tricky. So in order to exhaust it, then we cultivate samadhi. Now, cultivating samadhi in our text, it says there are two parts, with signs and without signs. First, as Master Nagarjuna said, one's own mind is innately birthless. And so this is actually pointing out the meaning, but with just a sprinkling. Don't intellectualize this. One's own mind is innately birthless. Just leave it as that, innately birthless. Wow. Okay, leave it. Its very nature, it's the very nature of emptiness. The yogi, so here the Tibetan is Nel Jur. Nel is the natural. Jor is to course in, to move in that which is natural. So yogi doesn't capture the full meaning, And even these days, yogi is used as like a substitute, as like a term for Dharma practitioners, serious Dharma practitioners who are not monks. At least, misuse of this word yogi. The real meaning of yogi, Neojor, Neojorpa. Neo is the natural state. Jor is to move in, is to course in that which is natural. So the true yogi is one, a true Neojorpa is one who cultivates this birthless mind. The essence of which is empty. Neither exhaling or inhaling the breath, nor opening or closing the eyes. These are all paradoxical. Deliberately so. Don't try to solve this. These are just, prompts. Don't try to solve this like a mathematical problem. Does not bend backward, nor stoop forward. Is not speaking, nor is not speaking. All this, has to do with, at least on the surface, of the things that you are often asked, right, to check in on as you meditate. Inhale, exhale. Open your eyes or close your eyes. Careful not to go sit like this. Careful not to sit like this. Don't speak. But here, Nagarjuna says, cultivate the birthless, whose nature is empty. The true Neojorpa, the one who courses in the natural, is working on that. Not working on these other things. Even though these other things, like in the 7 points Vairochana, it's saying, sit upright, meaning don't lean forward, don't lean backwards, eyes down, not wide open, not close, cast down. Let breath be natural, all of that. But here, do not engage with external objects. External objects in this context is not just talking about, table, chairs, things out there, including the things that are going on. All that is actually external. External to this birthless mind. Do not engage with external objects, and do not, does not. Oh, yeah, the yogi, and does not conceptualize the mind with it. So, what does this really mean? Well, there are levels of understanding this. For now, it means drop everything. Drop all your opinions, all your ideas, then properly assume the physical posture with the 7 points of Vairocana. Then, as instructed above, take refuge and generate bodhicitta. Visualize your body as the idam. Cultivate the guru. Make offerings and pray to the guru. Then, at your heart center, as idam, single-mindedly and without distraction, focus on the blue bindu, the size of a mustard seed, endowed with light, and cultivate that. Again and again, bring your attention back to the Bindu. The blue drop in the center of your heart. Sapphire blue, shiny, bright, dark blue. Whatever thoughts or feelings arise, do not follow them. Instead, direct your mind to that Bindu. It says here in the instructions on page 48, when a good state of samadhi arises from doing this, then relax in the natural state, not holding the object of focus. So meaning that this blue bindu, yourself as idam, the presence of the guru, all of that, you can just kind of lightly kind of leave that alone and just stay and be natural. What is a good state of samadhi? Meaning, whatever it is, that if you feel, okay, now it feels pretty good, it's pretty steady, the mind, and which may not be very steady at all. But if you feel it's steady, then just relax. No need to focus on the blue bindu. Again, focus your mind intently. So this is a process of loosening, tightening, loosening, tightening. These are the lessons along the way. Do it so that you get to directly experience how it feels when you are tightening your focus around the bindu, around yourself as idam, presence of the guru. And notice what happens when you release that and you just relax. Back and forth, back and forth. Again, focus your mind intently on the bindu at the heart and cultivate it. And cultivate the bindu. This word cultivate, I like it a lot. Meditate on is too passive. Cultivate tells us that unless we form that bindu, the bindu is not going to be there. So you form that bindu. You hold on to the form of that bindu even. That drop. Size of a sesame seed, blue in color. Whatever thoughts arise, do not follow them. Whatever feelings arise, do not follow them. Instead, direct your mind to that very bindu. So tightening. And tighten this. Then when you feel, mind is very stable now, release and see. Is it still stable when you release? Initially, yes, and then it goes back to its old habits. Then tighten it again, loosening it again, tightening it again, loosening it again. So this is like lifting, weights. This is the heart gym, remember? So this is what's going on. Is it about this? No. Is it about this? No. It's about all of this. Loosening. But won't accomplish what you're trying to work on if you just hold your weights like that. Lift the weights. This feels good. Won't accomplish much if you just hold your weights like that. Now, you need to release. But release with so much care, like weights. You don't want to tear a muscle. And then lift. So this is the tightening and loosening. All there are lessons, insights to learn as you do this. Practice this in 4 sessions. Finally, let even the bindu itself become non-referential and rest in an unaltered state. Right now, just words for us. But when you do this tightening and loosening and really kind of experience it, then you can understand more. What does it mean to let the bindu itself become non-referential? Beyond what these words are saying. What does it mean? Not an idea. But it is an experience. And so these are the experiences that arise from engaging the method. They're called nyam. Nyam. So nyam su lempa is nyam len. Is often translated as meditate, to meditate, or to practice, rather. Nyam su lempa nyam len, to practice. But a deeper meaning in the Tibetan is to take into experience, to take that as experience, or to take into experience. It can be translated variously, that you have to take it into your experience. Nyam len. So then nyam becomes, you have more and more nyam, you have more and more meditative experiences. But this nyam is a precursor to nyampa, is a precursor to tokpa, realizations. So between the two, realizations is finally the result. But without nyam, without meditative experiences, without building up meditative experiences, without this lifting in the heart gym, it's not going to give rise to tokpa realizations. Good. Now, dedication. Page 78. By the virtues collected in the three times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtues, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Bodhi. Chanchu Samcho Rinpoche Magye Bano Kye Gyu Geba Nyampa Mepa Yam Gong Ne Gong Du Belwa Shu. Okay. Have a good morning, have a good evening, all of you. Ta-ta, see you tomorrow.